So this week we looked at volcanoes. Firstly, what is a volcano? What is a volcano? Volcano is basically like a mountain. It's a mountain, but it's kind of full of molten rock. And at some time in its life, it's exploded. It's exploded, but the technical term is not exploded, but erupted. Erupted. So at some time in its life, it erupted. Most volcanoes are cone-shaped, and I told you, we talked a little bit about ice creams and how I love ice cream, and I like ice cream when it's in a cone, and basically a volcano is typically cone-shaped. So your ice cream cone, but when you have it this way, the ice cream on top, it's upside down. So if you take that cone and flip it, that's your volcano shape. That's the typical volcano shape. It's cone shaped. Volcanoes are formed when the mantle, remember like in your hot chocolate experiment, the mantle, the milk, so when the mantle gets really hot and it's forced, it's pushed up through the vent, through the hole in the Earth's crust, and that's exactly how volcanoes are formed. Where are volcanoes formed? Where? Where? Volcanoes are formed at destructive, and constructive. Destructive and constructive plate margins. At the destructive plate margins, remember you've got your two plates, so your oceanic plate and your continental plate. The oceanic plate is thin, but it's dense, it's heavier. And you've got your continental plate, which is thicker, but it's less dense, it's less heavy. And remember, you should know this by now, when the two plates collide, the oceanic plate subducts. It subducts, it goes underneath because it's heavier. And when it goes underneath, it meets the magma, this really hot magma, and it melts, it liquefies, and it breaks, it destructs. So you've got your two plates colliding, the oceanic plate subducts or goes under the continental plate. The oceanic plate meets the magma and it melts. It is destroyed. It's destroyed. And the melted rock then creates this pool of magma. So now you have a lot more of this hot, gloopy magma stuff. You've got more of it now. And obviously that means that it's rising. So the magma was here, now this new rock has melted and the level has risen. That creates a lot more pressure now. And the only place for this magma to go is to go upwards. And it escapes, it rises through the cracks, through the breaks in the crust. And these little breaks, the cracks in the crust, are called vents. Vents. And you might remember that I spoke to you a little bit about when you have a jacket, like a sports jacket, and you have holes for the hot air around your body to escape. Sometimes in a room we have vents, so hot air vents. It's just a place for the air to escape. It comes from the French word vent, which means like breathing, so it's where the air can escape. So the magma, it erupts, it explodes, it goes up to the surface, the Earth's surface, and when it reaches the surface, we don't call it magma anymore. Now we call it lava. Lava, L-A-V-A. And this forms the volcano. The second place where the volcanoes are formed is the constructive plate margin. Constructive. Remember we were talking about two plates where they are moving apart from each other, but the magma comes up between them and forms a new plate or new crust. And this was a constructive plate margin. The volcanoes form here because the magma rises up into the gap between the two plates, which are moving apart, remember, and the volcano is formed or constructed here. Okay. There is a kind of a third way that the volcanoes are formed, and we call these hotspots. And this just means that, like, on the Earth's crust, at certain points on the mantle, it's really hot. And where it's really hot, we get these hot spots. So sometimes volcanoes form on the top of the mantle when it is very hot. And an example of this is Hawaii. Okay, so remember that. Now, volcanoes can be one of three states, you can say. They can either be active, dormant, or extinct. Active, dormant, or extinct. An active volcano, it means it has erupted recently, and when we say recently, we mean relatively recently, like in the last 2,000 years, which is not very recently to me, but in scientific terms and then Earth terms, it's recent. So an active volcano has erupted recently, and it is likely to erupt again. In your exam, you will be asked for examples of this. So you can give examples such as Mount Etna in Italy. That's a really good one to look up on Google. You'll find some really interesting videos and information about the eruptions from Mount Etna in Sicily in Italy. Another example is Montserrat in the Caribbean, and Pinatubo in the Philippines, and Mount St. Helens in the USA. There are currently registered over 600 active volcanoes on the planet. So don't tell me that you can't find any on the internet, because there are over 600 active volcanoes, alright? Okay, so the second state is dormant. It's a little bit like resting. And it just means that it hasn't erupted in the last 2,000 years. There are more than 530 dormant volcanoes on the planet. So dormant, it's just resting. And then we have extinct volcanoes, which means they're like dead. And basically, the scientists say that they will never erupt again. And a classic example is the Devil's Tower in the USA. Devil's Tower, USA. However, sometimes the scientists get it wrong. And when they tell you that a volcano is extinct, it might just erupt still because they made a mistake. So an example of this was one in Alaska, which was supposedly extinct and erupted in 2006. So the definition of extinct is that it will never erupt again. However, sometimes the scientists classify them wrong. Okay? Science is not infallible. Scientists do make mistakes. It's all part of learning. Okay? Now, there are 3 types of volcano, and you need to know the 3 types. You have to know them very well, because they will come up in your exam. You need to know them. The first one is a composite volcano. And examples include Mount Fuji in Japan and Mount Etna in Italy. And basically, the 2 important things to remember with composite volcanoes is that they are made of layers of ash and lava. Ash and lava. That's the one thing that makes it very different from the other 2 types. So remember, this one has ash and lava. The other 2 only have the lava, no ash. Okay, remember that. So the composite volcano has 4 things which are ejected, which are thrown out of the vent. Remember, vent is where you let away air and different things. So ash, gas, volcanic bombs, and molten. And these four things are ejected, are sent shooting out of the vent. Once they get shooted out of the vent, they cool and they harden at the surface. So they get colder and they go really hard. Okay? And composite volcanoes are made of layers of ash and lava. The lava is very thick, but it flows slowly. So the lava is thick, but it flows slowly. But it goes hard very quickly to form a steep-sided volcano. Steep-sided volcano. Okay, the second kind of volcano is a shield volcano. Shield. You can think of a man with his suit of armor and a shield.